Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the Resonance Games kind of debut showcase here. So we're going to be talking with Kieran here, kind of the game's head designer, and um, he owns the company, I guess you could say, of Resonance Games.
Technically, we're not incorporated, but we
Not,
are a
not
business,
yet,
a registered business.
to be determined.
TBD.
Um, Kieran, why don't you introduce yourself? What's your background, and
Yeah,
what brings you
sure.
here today?
Well, before I introduce myself, I'm gonna go live with the screen here just to have the game kind of running in the
Oh,
background while we talk. How's that sound?
perfect. Oh, that sounds good.
All right. So people can watch this if they want. I try to keep the volume
So
a little low.
there'll be a stream where you guys can see some gameplay here while we talk.
Yeah. So feel free to switch between our faces or that. And if it's a little too loud, let us know and we can turn it down. I think we're keeping it about 40%. I think you can manage the volume on that too.
Yep.
But anyways, my name's Kieran Lang. I'm the founder of Resonance Games. I am a game designer here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I've been in the industry for probably getting near 5 years now. Came out of
Mhm.
Vancouver Film School in 2015. From there, I hopped around a couple studios. I worked at Hothead Games, working on a game called Killshot Virus, which was a mobile first-person shooter. And then I was blessed enough to work at Next Level Games, working on Luigi's Mansion 3, which I'm sure many of you have played or heard of. But after coronavirus hit, I decided that unemployment was the way to go. I don't know if I decided that or if it was thrust upon me, but I decided to start working on my own personal project on the side while I looked for work. And many, many months later, I've now found a job. And I'm going to be working at a company called Navigator Games, but I am committed to continuing work on Resonance Games and its title, which you can see here, Resonance Rhythm in You.
Yeah. Now this game looks is pretty interesting. It's not maybe at quick glance, especially with this gameplay here, it might look like maybe a kind of a traditional RPG game, and it definitely I know it borrows quite a few elements from that. But what is kind of different about this game here, Kieran?
Yeah, so I wanted to make originally I wanted to make kind of a rhythm game. Like my dream kind of game in the future is to
Hmm.
make a rhythm-based action combat kind of game, but that's very untenable as a single developer, even with a small indie team. And so I kind of scaled back those ideas and decided to make something more easily managed on a platform like Unity. And I took a step back from the real-time action, and as we're going to see in probably several minutes here, I could skip ahead too if you'd like, Chris, but um, the gameplay is a little bit more akin to a Final Fantasy kind of. It's not turn-based or anything, but it's like you're playing a beat
Hmm.
rhythm game with RPG elements.
Right. So they have those games like Dance Dance Revolution esque, where you're trying to hit notes at certain times to
Yeah,
kind of play the game,
yeah. So a lot of
but
rhythm.
obviously in an RPG.
Yeah, yeah. So in a lot of rhythm-based games that kind of try to meld genres, which I'm sure a lot of people here might know, is that they tend to focus on those kind of DDR-esque elements that are it's very kind of abstract and hitting notes, and that
Hmm.
ends up winning you the game. But I really did want to add some RPG like Final Fantasy kind of aspects to it, where players could unlock skills and abilities and activate those to the beat of the song. And as we'll see when the battle starts, there's a bit of a back and forth between the enemies and the character. Yeah,
Yeah. Why don't we jump to the gameplay then, and then we can kind of take a quick look
sure. Yeah,
at
I'll fast
I
forward
mean, this
here.
is gameplay as well, but more of an actual fight.
Well, yeah, I guess one thing I can talk about quickly here is like
Yeah.
we wanted our rhythm RPG to have a strong narrative focus. A lot of games that are kind of rhythm based tend to have really abstract narratives that aren't really melded in with the gameplay.
Hmm.
A game I always reference is Crypt of the Necrodancer, which I love. And there is a narrative there, which is presented in the game, but it's still kind of loose and it's not as driven by the narrative. I really wanted to make this a game where people who love stories and characters and following a deeper lore could be invested in as well as playing along
Right.
with rhythm-based combat and whatnot. And as you could see there, as the
Because I
hero,
don't think I've ever seen anything like this before. I don't think it's anything like this has really been done.
there's definitely nothing that I can reference offhand that's like a large successful product. There are definitely rhythm-based RPGs out there that I've seen, but yeah, they're not a huge market. There's definitely a market opportunity there, which is another reason why I pursued this. But as you can see with the hero talking to this character named Ooze,
Yeah, I
oh, go ahead.
was gonna say, is that a talking frog?
It is a talking frog, yes.
What are we looking at here?
Yeah, so all the footage you're seeing now is from the alpha prototype, which was all placeholder assets. So I'd like to take credit for this amazing art, but it was done by a guy named Louis Zuno, who has commercially available free to use art. And so since I was the only one working on the alpha prototype at the time, uh, I had to get art and audio and stuff that was free to use. So unfortunately, for anybody who's now disappointed because they're like, wait, this isn't your stuff, we do have our stuff coming down the line at the moment, but this was more to capture the general aesthetic and
Proof of concept.
yeah, exactly. And before
Totally.
we jump into the combat, one thing I wanted to mention was that you could even see in the dialogue that we might even have some choices you can make in the dialogue. They're not going to be huge BioWare spanning kind of dialogue branches, but just a little
Hmm.
bit to give the player a bit of agency.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like we got the combat system about to open up here. So as people can see, basically there's going to be beats that run along the track. And when these beats come, the player has to press a button and basically have some options in terms of what they want to do in combat. So it's not like there's one singular thing to do when each note comes by. There's quite a bit of variance, and people can have, like in a normal RPG combat, right? You can dodge, you can hit, you can, power up. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that there, Kieran?
Yeah, so like I said, a lot of those kind of other games that use rhythm mechanics, especially the ones that use kind of the DDR style system, they'll be like you press up, down, left, right, and maybe when you do that, your character attacks or charges magic or something. I really wanted to make it so that the beats were important, but that you made actions on the beat. So there was always that ability that players could have to kind of run through a battle at their own pace and the kind of strategy they want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, Now taking a look, I mean, for the combat system, I mean, um, this has probably been the main focus of the build so far, right? This is kind of where you probably put most of your time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The well, the nice thing about the narrative aspects of the game, like the exploration of the town, talking to characters, that's all really actually quite easy to script and code, even for like a
Right.
novice coder like me, a novice scripter.
Mhm.
So that stuff was all pretty easy. The combat was like the big meaty chunk of steak that I had to tackle. It was a terrible analogy, but
Right.
that was definitely the meat of it that I wanted to make sure felt good and felt fun.
Right. So what kinds of things can you do moment to moment in the combat?
So uh, this may change, but given what people are viewing right now in the alpha prototype, the actions, the two core actions, or I guess sorry, three core actions are strike. So you're hitting the enemy. Um, as you can see when they're doing it in this, you'll probably get like one or two or three strike combo-y sort of deal. You defend and block, so you can block to the front or block above, depending on when the enemy is
Mhm.
coming from. And then there's also gathering of a resource called Rhythm, which is our trademark version of mana. It's basically mana. And so you gather a rhythm to activate the abilities, your spells, and like combat abilities.
Mhm.
Whereas you block an attack to get in chip damage, block enemy attacks to stay alive, and also gather rhythm while you are attacking and blocking.
Right. So basically, as you attack and do standard combat, you build up your mana and then unleash a special move, which we can kind of see in the background here.
Yeah, so here you
Beats
see
the
the
beat slash.
first use of Beat Slash, yeah, which is an ability where once you gather enough rhythm, you can activate it on the beat to basically activate this little DDR rhythm. I was giving DDR rhythm games such a hard time earlier, but we use them here too. It's just so easy.
Mhm.
But basically, we use
Mhm.
that little mini game as a way to advance the battle and allow the player to kind of activate these skill challenges that will have these
Right.
flashy results.
Mm. That makes sense.
Actually, if you want to, we can.
So
Do you want to just we can focus on this for a bit? I'll turn up the volume a little bit.
sure, yeah. So you guys can hear the music there. Taking some hits. So it looks like you messed up the rhythm there, so it canceled.
Yeah, so for some of these abilities, if you make a mistake or whatnot, it would end the skill challenge a little bit earlier. So there's a little bit of risk reward and getting like progressing and getting better. Also,
I remember when I
I
played through this, I definitely struggled to. At first, I was kept messing up the beat, but then as I played on, it got easier and easier, and I got better at it.
Yeah, there's definitely a really nice learning curve of being able to get better at the game and feeling like you're mastering it. It's almost a Dark Souls-esque sort of like learning of the game. And one thing we just saw was, I want to point out, was that in the middle of battle, there could even be these narrative moments between the two characters. So in that case, Ooze hit a certain HP value, and so it triggered this kind of dialogue event. And so even in the middle of a battle with music going on, we still want to make sure that the narrative and storytelling is rich.
Definitely. So it looks like the battle's coming to an end. Let's see if you land this combo here. Oh. There you go. Finished them off there. So tell us a little bit more about the world here. I mean, you've got a cool world. Do you have any kind of inspirations in terms of your, you're definitely going for a fantasy style.
Sorry, I was just looking at the chat here, and people seem to like the frog. Yes,
Like the frog.
I will say that just to Drew mentioned that the animations, the NPCs are so detailed. We are definitely wanting to hit like this level of fidelity for our pixel art for when we actually make our art, which we'll see later in this presentation. But the art that Louis Zuno makes is amazing. I recommend anybody check it out. I can post it in there afterwards. But to answer your question, Chris, the story, or your question was the setting?
More about the world, the setting in the world.
Sure.
What were the inspirations there?
Yeah, so the world is basically this almost, the setting that you see now is very medieval Gothic sort of inspired, medieval Gothic fantasy looking. But the actuality is that the setting actually kind of has a bit of, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just say there are some expectation twisting kind of things with the setting and characters. So, for example, you might run into a creature like Ooze, who is this frog man. He should be wearing clothes, but and that feels kind of like a fantasy character you might run in D&D. But you might run into other characters where you're like, this doesn't feel necessarily like it should be here, and that kind of is hinting at a bigger story.
I see. So you have some grand plans here.
If playing D&D with you, Chris, has taught me anything, it's that or if it's taught you anything, it should be that I like to plan ahead. So yeah, there's definitely, I have the end game in mind, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun when we finally get there. But right now, slow steps. It's basically what you see with the alpha prototype and what we're kind of aiming for our first vertical slice of the game, which is about an hour of like polished content, is our hero basically in town of Zephyra, which is kind of his hometown, and it's this kind of run down Gothic kind of village where there's a king and queen presiding in the distance in their castle, but things aren't doing so well for the people of Zephyra. And so our hero is kind of a scavenger type. What you'll see in his art later is he kind of carries satchels, and as a backpack he goes around town and outside of town trying to find scraps and maybe old pieces of armor and weapons and selling them for a living.
Nice. It looks like we just got into a fight here too, it looks like. So you were just walking down the street and it looks like this rogue just jumped you here.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to take a break from my lore. I could go on and on about lore, but yeah, so Ooze was kind of a boss level enemy or a mini boss level enemy. We do want to have other enemies in the overworld for you to run into, and basically it's kind of that Final Fantasy transition where when you run into them, brings you to this other screen, and each of the enemies that you fight is an important kind of lore point too, is that the hero basically has the ability to hear the soul song of the opponent, basically the embodiment of who they are in music. And so when you get into a fight with that enemy, you're listening to their soul song. And so for enemies like this bandit, they're a little bit more generic. They're a little bit more, maybe even more fantasy kind of classical music. But then when you encounter characters like Ooze, you might get a song that's more funk rock, right? Which was what we heard earlier, and that might actually kind of break That's another thing that might break the expectations of the world, right? As you'll see later, there's another musical piece that breaks that as well.
That makes sense. And with the rogue too, like, so for instance, I know that you can. Oh, you just jumped over him. Very nice.
Yeah. So I don't want to make. Sorry, I don't want to. I definitely don't want to force players into fights. There is going to be some level of platforming in the final game, and so you'll be able to kind of avoid fights or engage fights before they engage you.
Right. That makes sense. And I kind of wanted to ask about, like, so for instance, I know you can. There's a lot of variety in the way you can attack. You can pick when you dodge. You said you can block high. You can block low. Does that mean when you're fighting the thief, they're going to have different ways they attack versus the way, say, Ooze was attacking you, the frogman?
Yeah, so the whole kind of combat moment-to-moment gameplay is basically just that, you learning your opponent's moves. And so the moves of the enemies you run into in the overworld are going to be a lot simpler and easier to kind of predict, whereas the enemies from bosses and that sort of thing will introduce new skill challenges and things that you have to learn, maybe over 1 or 2 tries of fighting that particular enemy.
Right, that makes sense. Where are we now? What looks like we've fallen down into.
Yeah, so our hero basically, while exploring, runs into this kind of hidden ruin, and this was the area that we saw at the beginning of the game where he fell into it and kind of got knocked unconscious. And when that happened, some entity in the ruin melded with him and gave him the ability to channel people's soul songs into his own powers. That's kind of the lore behind that.
Right.
And it looks like Ooze.
So it's something he's recently gotten.
Yeah. So this is a new power that he's unlocked, and so he's just trying to adapt to that, and that's part of the kind of level progression of the game, where players will be able to upgrade their skills and improve their mastery of rhythm, and you could say the rhythm in you, but yeah.
Very good. Now, music obviously is a big part to this, right? You could argue it's to be one of the most important parts of the game. What have you been making most of the music yourself, or like how do you kind of go about putting that together?
So at the meantime for this alpha prototype, like I said, a lot of the tracks, like the one you're listening to now, if you listen carefully, these are free to use pieces that I found online with like public use licenses. And that was mainly just for prototyping. But we have worked with one composer in particular named Daniel Rugama, who's done a few of the pieces for this, which including the forest track that you will hear while you're walking through it after the fight, and even the next battle track, which you'll hear in just a moment. But we do want to work with maybe even multiple composers to try to find different pieces and different styles and genres. But
are you guys looking for artists?
Well, in terms of
are you looking for
at the meantime, since we're kind of in a slower burn development, we're kind of like working with people that are able to help us on their spare time and whatnot. But once we actually go into full production, we're definitely going to be wanting to find dedicated artists and audio technicians, etc.
Let's take a moment here. We're coming up on a pretty special fight. Why don't we turn it up and take a moment to watch this battle.
Yeah, so this is the first kind of boss enemy that you end up fighting in the game. It's the Phase Wolf. It's kind of a spirit wolf, I guess you could say. And Yeah, so as you can hear, the soul song of the Phase Wolf is actually more like a classic orchestral EDM sort of style song, which is definitely not something you necessarily expect. So I definitely look forward to like seeing all the different ways we can implement different musical genres and such. And this is the piece that was done by Dan. He
Yeah, you did a great job with
Oh
this.
yeah, super catchy.
And this fight too, obviously, it looks to be a lot more complex than the fights you've had so far. I can see the wolf like attacking multiple times and stuff. So is there like different rhythms that the wolf has compared to the other enemies?
Yeah, so oh, hang on.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so sorry to up the volume there, but yeah,
No.
so to answer your question, the wolf is each boss will introduce maybe a new mechanic or some style of combat that you'll need to adapt to. And so in this case, the wolf will attack you twice and then before attacking from above, and so you'll kind of have to learn that pattern so you know to block forward, block from above. And then as you saw, once you got the wolf to a certain HP value, he did his howl ability, which you can see now. And that kind of act brings in almost a new skill challenge that the player may be familiar with since they do the other beat slash one. But it's almost the wolf's version of the beat slash, which you have to then dodge using the arrow keys.
Super cool. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, it looks like you've almost got him down here. The tough fight.
Yeah,
I know. I wanted to quickly draw comparisons to Dark Souls. Actually, was one of the main things I thought about. Dark Souls can actually. I've heard a lot of people compare it to a rhythm game. Obviously, it's more combat leaning, but especially in some boss fights, it's all about learning the cadence and rhythm of the enemy. And I definitely felt that playing through this fight.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
definitely. Yeah, you nailed it with saying the rhythm of the fight. That's kind of the whole jam, right? So I don't want the boss fights to. I don't want this game to be Dark Souls of rhythm games per se. I think Crypt of the Necrodancer already kind of has that market, but I definitely want at least the bigger kind of more thematic fights to maybe take the player one or two tries before they can get through it. And as we see now, that was kind of the end of the alpha prototype. You can still run around and discover a few new things, but yeah, the boss fights should definitely feel special and be almost the highlight of any single level.
yeah, they're super fun.
Oh,
We just lost Kieran there.
hello. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
Okay.
You should turn on your video though. I don't see it.
Oh, okay. Hang on a second.
But you guys can check out. You guys can actually play the alpha prototype on the Facebook page. We'll link the socials at the end, but you can look up Residence Games on Facebook, and you can play through the alpha prototype yourself. So if you guys got an evening, give it a go. And I think even Kieran, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you got any feedback or anything too, more people playing it and testing it, the better.
For sure. I mean, we have a lot of really solid feedback from the playtesters that we've gotten already.
Yeah.
And there's some changes that even from this alpha prototype you're watching that I would make. But if anybody has feedback or bugs, you can definitely feel free to reach out on our Facebook group. Resonance Games is on Facebook, or even email us at resonancegamescommunity@gmail.com. I'll link all that stuff in the relevant areas.
Yeah. So I wanted to quickly ask, I mean, obviously, you haven't done all this yourself. Like, what kind of support have you gotten so far? Like, what people have you leaned on? I think some people might know Derek here in the
yeah, Derek, who's watching right now and has been a big sponsor for Game Jam, he's been helping out. He's a good friend of mine from VFS times, and he's been helping where he can. And other people, close friends that I've worked with in the past or that I know from the industry have been super supportive, and even friends like yourself who's kind of jumped on as a community kind of role. So we're obviously not at the level yet where we can actively hire people. We don't have funding at the moment, but we're kind of trying to build our vertical slice that I mentioned earlier so that we can, in fact, get that funding and make the full game a reality.
Yeah, I guess that kind of leads to my next question is kind of like where where do you want to take things? What's kind of the big picture going forward right now?
Yeah, so right now we were trying to get funding, and we were looking for that, but unfortunately that kind of fell through, and I can only remain unemployed for so long. But now that I've got a full-time position, and a lot of the people working and helping out on the project have full-time positions that they're working on when they can, um, we're basically going to be looking at a longer burn sort of development where we try to prop up our vertical slice over the next 6 to 12 months.
Hmm.
And then from there, we hope to show that off. Maybe you could go to a platform like Patreon or Kickstarter, even reaching out to publishers
Right.
to try to secure funding so that we can move on to a full production and maybe flesh out our full game. I think that's
Hmm.
the finished thing there. All right, sorry, that was the end of the. I guess I can just play from the
Awesome.
beginning here. Why not? Something in the background for
Keep
people.
it on loop.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we would hope to get funding at that point, maybe work with a publisher. But basically, we're aiming to make the game like, typical indie style, maybe 8-hour kind of production. We definitely keeping the scope smaller on this one because we know how the people working on this project definitely understand the importance of scoping correctly, and so we're not reaching for the stars with this
Hmm.
one, but we think that we can provide a really a nice and interesting and unique story within a nice and interesting and unique gameplay shell that I think players are really going to enjoy
Yeah.
and be wanting more from Resonance Games.
I think a big part as well that you brought up that I really like, Kieran, is the fact that you're making this game because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of your end goals would be making a game studio where you can keep people employed, but also have a focus on, the creators and the developers to have, realistic standards for their game developers, right?
Yeah, so Resonance Games obviously is a business, registered business, and doesn't technically currently have any employees or anything like that. But yeah, down the road when we've launched this game and maybe there's some success there, whatnot. Yeah, my end dream would definitely be to kind of start my own studio and something that Resonance Games that I created and that I believe in is to make a worker-centric studio, which I think a lot of
Mm.
studios these days are starting to kind of embrace. But offering stuff like transparent wages and salaries, so you don't have to be guessing about what the next guy's making or what you're making.
Yeah.
Stuff like vacation time as you need it, not having to worry about that sort of thing. Um, and profit sharing. So if you're working on the project as a
Hmm.
game developer, I feel like you should be able to reap the rewards of your work. I don't know how controversial of an opinion that is these days, but obviously many studios don't work off that model. We'd probably look at more of a cooperative business model than your typical studio. I'm not in this to make huge amounts of profit myself. Like I would rather work with people and be surrounded by people that are also benefiting from the joint creative work that we're creating.
Mm. Yeah, and I know working with you, Kieran, just from my experience, you're very good with communication, and especially even the fact that this is a project that's, obviously right now there's no budget, but you've been very flexible with everybody, and it's been a joy to work with you. So I can only imagine in the future, if things get better, it would be a very good company to work under you or work with you.
Yeah,
I'd
no,
say.
definitely. Work with is definitely the motto
Yeah.
there. But yeah, so that's kind of our end goal. But
Mm.
obviously,
Mhm.
that's looking way far ahead. We're just screwing around making a fun rhythm RPG at the moment, and we're gaining some traction.
Mhm. I mean, I think that's why everybody's here, right? They
Yeah,
just like making games, playing
exactly.
games. You know, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Um, so then I guess what are kind of like some short-term goals? Kind of current things you guys are working on.
Yeah, so as
Some stuff maybe just past the prototype.
you'll see as we move on to the next part of this presentation, I guess, is we've been working with some freelancers, trying to get some concept art done, get some of our actual like art that we want done, and that's kind of going slow as we are trying to work with people that have full-time jobs, have their own things going on. But I think as we get that stuff out, it'll excite people more to
Mhm.
see the project coming along like that. So slow and steady,
Let's take a
bite-sized
look.
increments. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Do you want to stop sharing your screen? I'll throw mine up so that it's not conflicting. Okay. Yeah, I think a great, something like this would be a great opportunity for it. I know a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of people like to work on projects, outside of the video game company they work for. Um, so something like this would be really good for those kinds of people.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I know Dan, for instance, he doesn't do anything really in terms of video game stuff, but he does love music, and this was like a really cool outlet for him to produce some work for.
Yeah, he loves music and he loves games, and that's the kind of passion we want to see in Resonance games.
Can you see the slideshow here?
Yep.
Perfect. All
Awesome.
right.
So we're just looking at some concept art here, made by Barrett. How do you know Barrett? Like, what's his relationship here?
Yeah, so when was it? About late last year, I saw a concept artist who was posting in a Facebook group, indie game. I don't remember what group it was. It was an indie game group, and he was looking for freelance work, and I really loved his portfolio, and so I reached out to him, and we negotiated some prices, and he's been working with us ever since. He's loved the project,
Yeah.
and I love his work. And one of the first things we did was kind of get the hero obviously fleshed out, and um,
Hmm.
we
So
got some early concepts done of
this
the
is a little
hero.
bit more what you're going for, right? Like this is the kind of the before that was just the pre
Yeah,
alpha.
so actually, Derek, who's in this chat as well, he was the one who came up with the hero design originally and fleshed kind of out his thoughts and ideas about it. I'm sorry, Derek, for putting you on the spot. But then Barrett kind of took his designs and ran with it, and then we got what you see here, which is the hero's final design, which I mean, I think has the potential to be iconic for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then it looks like he's been busy. This is some of the newer stuff, right? Just some stuff
Yeah,
for
so
residents and
this is stuff that hasn't been shown yet, so it's brand new just for the eyes of the Global Game Jam presentation for now. So it obviously is a little less um, spectacle. There are a lot more simple designs, but these were just some Zephyra,
wow.
yeah, Zephyra villagers that we wanted to try to get some like a bunch of different ideas and shapes done so that when we get a pixel artist to make them, they have some reference on what maybe the people in Zephyra will look like or what their clothing they're wearing
Hmm.
is. Yeah, so these are pretty simple
Definitely a
concepts, but
downtrodden people for the
hmm
most part.
yeah, one of the things about I think people in Zephyra are definitely down on their luck, but the garments they have are a lot of them are passed down from their fathers and mothers before them, and uh, very much there's an heirloom sort of culture where wearing one specific heirloom piece is kind of like that's like something you do. So
Cool. Yeah, super cool. And then we got a bit of the town here. You can kind of see a bit more of the idea of the look that you guys were going for, kind of the gothic look there.
yeah, so this was the first piece of environment concept that we did as we were trying to get
Mhm.
some environment done. And one thing that I guess I haven't mentioned, which is pretty big, is that we're actually aiming to have a 3D environment with 2D characters. So you'll see that
Oh,
later
cool.
on. Yeah, it actually looks pretty neat. And so before in the alpha
Hmm.
prototype, it was 2D backgrounds with 2D characters because that was just what I had access to. But as we move forward, we're actually going to model 3D environments for the 2D pixel art characters to run through, and it kind of has some Octopath Traveler or um,
Mm.
there's another game I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a few other games that have kind of blended those two styles, and I think that it looks really cool. So even in this concept piece, you can see the smokestacks from the building are pixel art. The little bird on the
Oh
thing
yeah.
in the lake is pixel art, and there's some pixel art aspects on the boat as well, just in the bottom right of the boat. And so we were just
Mhm.
trying to play around and see how pixel art kind of fused with the 3D objects, and I think Barrett did an
It
amazing
looks
job of
good.
capturing Zephyra.
Hmm. Yeah, this really paints a picture. And now we got Ooze here.
Yeah. So
This is kind of more the actual final look you want.
those who were chanting, I think it was Drew, you were chanting frogs, and George, you like the frogs. This is what ooze should look like. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna go and say, hey, look at this super one, like came up with all of this myself. I definitely was inspired by the art that I was working with. So I loved the fact that I grabbed a frog for whatever reason at the time to use, and I just stuck. So we ended up going with Ooze, making him a little bit more Zephyrian, if you will. You can see that one of like an heirloom piece he might have is that cape that he wears. It's a little more
Oh, it's
fancy
nice.
than he might
Hmm.
actually be wearing. Um, and he uses a frog catcher spear sort of weapon, which is kind of fun. So yeah, I really love what Barrett's done with the Use character, and I can't wait to see him in actual pixel art.
Yeah, this definitely looks like a cool kind of character, antagonist, or whatever the kind of the plans are there.
Yeah, there's I won't spoil anything, but there are some frenemy sort of characters throughout the game, and this is one of them. So he's an unlikely ally potentially.
Yeah, got it. Why is this dagger stolen? I can see it says stolen dagger there. Come on.
Oh, because Ooze is a bit of a, I don't want to say cutthroat because that makes him sound like a villain, but like the hero, he's kind of a,
Cuts people's throat.
yeah,
Got it.
exactly. He is a brigand. He leads a group called the Zephyrin Brigands, the Zephyr Brigands, which are kind of a
Mhm.
motley crew of downtrodden individuals in Zephyra, and they basically do a lot of the same things the hero does, scavenge and try to make it day by day. But a lot of these scavenging groups have turned to banditry to make the money they need to live day by day in Zephyra.
Right, right. And then here's just a little bit more, I think, just up close for some of the buildings. I can see you've done some of the 3D art as well. Not 3D, sorry, the 2D art for the chimney in the top left.
Yeah, there's some pixel art smoke. I think a lot of the pixel art elements we're looking for, other than the characters, would probably be visual effects or things like that, maybe leaves on trees. So this piece was done alongside the other one and basically was to try to hit almost a target look in terms of like maybe what we want the texturing and materials to look like. Obviously, Barrett's more of an illustrator, so you can definitely see that in these pieces. But I think that the kind of almost less saturated almost pastel look is kind of what we're going to end up trying to go for.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And who do we have here?
This is Elizabeth, and that is the hero's our main protagonist's wife, who you saw again. If you watch the alpha prototype
Yep.
footage, redheaded lady in a dress. I was definitely inspired by that, and actually we almost went with a brunette haired lady, but we were swerved back to the redhead once we did it because we just loved it so much. And even though it is inspired from that other art, that pixel art, I think Barrett did an awesome job of capturing a unique
Hmm.
and memorable character. I think there's one other piece maybe next. I don't know if you put it in there.
Yeah, I threw it. I scrambled them a little bit
Oh,
here.
scramble a little
Scrambled
bit?
eggs them.
Okay, maybe we'll talk more about Elizabeth when we get
Yep.
there.
Yeah. And then we got a little bit more of this is some of that looks like maybe some of the guys you were talking about, the group of thieves.
Yeah, so sorry, I was just trying to reply to a bit of the text people are loving the frog. A lot of frog, a lot of frog messages.
Hmm.
Yeah, so no,
Feels
no,
good,
these are
man.
actually the male residents of the town. So
Okay.
we had eight female residents, eight male residents, just to kind of get a plethora of shapes and body types and that. So yeah, we just these are just the typical residents of Zephyra.
Yep. Yep. That
Oh,
makes
there we
sense.
go.
And here we go. Here's a one for Elizabeth here.
Yeah, so
The child.
yeah, the child sounds very
The
prophetic.
child.
Um, so one of the main sort of driving forces of our hero is family, and he he married this not wealthy but like middle class, well-to-do lady, Elizabeth, who was living with her mother at the time, and they make by day to day, but things have been getting a little rougher. The hero goes out, tries to scavenge, get enough uh, money and whatnot for to buy food for his family. They had a child who's wrapped up in swaddled there, and Yeah, as I was
So it's
telling,
it's your child, I would
yeah,
assume.
it's the hero's child with Elizabeth. Yeah, not just some random stolen child or
Well,
changeling.
you know.
Yeah, it's definitely not Uza's child. But yeah, as you could see, as I was telling before about Zephyrin kind of culture and how they like heirloom pieces, you can see that the kind of coif, is that the right word? Or shawl? I guess it's right there. I could have just read it off
Yeah.
the screen. The shawl and part of her dress is kind of maybe an heirloom piece that was maybe passed down from her mother or mother before that, right? So I think even though they're not a wealthy family in Zephyr, I
Hmm.
think Barrett really captured the fact she's kind of a middle class, but very iconic. I think she has a nice
Yeah.
iconic look to her, which is an awesome
Oh,
target to hit.
great. Yeah, no,
Oh, one
she has a
last thing
great
is
design.
if you go back, is a lot of
Hmm.
games. I don't know why I keep promoting this as if it's like some innovation, but a lot of games like they get. I remember when Luigi's Mansion 3 came out and everybody was like, "Can you pet Polterpup? Can you pet Polterpup?" And that was like a huge feature. Petting dogs in any game is like a huge
You
feature.
have to.
I, sh-
You
I
have to.
yeah. I need to be careful. The Nintendo ninjas might be watching me, but yeah, petting dogs is like a huge look at you looking around. Petting dogs is a huge deal. Um, that the communities love that stuff, and so I'm like, but what about holding a baby? So we're gonna try to get it so that the hero can go up to the cradle and maybe like rock the baby or something. Not Chris, that's not how you deal with a baby. You don't just pat it on the head. But yeah, so
Baby.
we're gonna get some Resonance Games baby holding technology. Yeah, it's gonna
Wow.
that's a developer
2022.
promise, so that when I eventually break it, people can come back to this and say that Kieran Lang, it's just like every other developer.
Must touch child.
That's right.
And then this is just some really cool art, I think.
Yeah, so Barrett
And
did an illustrative piece that we kind of I wanted to get a piece done that was kind of able to be used somewhat for marketing, also just because I thought it would be cool. I think it his
fantastic.
drives hype a bit. So you see the hero obviously fighting Ooze. This would be kind of in that situation you saw in the alpha prototype where they're fighting each other in the alleyway, and he's obviously channeling rhythm through his armor to do some sort of cool attack, maybe beat slash.
Yep. Yeah. When you dance hard enough, lightning comes out.
That's right.
No, this is awesome. Yeah, I think this is a very representative piece of the game,
Yeah,
kind of what people
yeah,
can
I
expect.
yeah, just I want to trying to just capture the mood. I think that's something that's really important to me as a developer and a designer is capturing that atmosphere, the mood, the feeling that you'll get when you play. One of the things that again Resonance Games believes in is giving players an uh like emotionally driven sort of experience. So we're not making there's so many games out there that are kind of uh I shouldn't be digging other games as bad form, but there's a lot of games pumped out every year, and a lot of them kind of they feel a little generic or maybe lifeless. And I
Yep.
every game Resonance Games puts out, I really want to have that kind of emotional attachment. Because my favorite games and the games I played that influenced me were definitely ones that invoked emotional response. And I think music, going with a rhythm game and music, really helps that energy.
Mm. Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. Now I think that's the end of the slideshow here. I was wondering, we're getting close to time, but I would love to maybe show. Do you have that little bit of gameplay with the? I think in Unity it's showing kind of the 3D animation interacting with
Yeah,
the 2D and some of
yeah,
that.
I do. So let me go and share my screen here.
We're gonna have a Q&A in just a minute, guys. So if you have any questions, maybe start posting some stuff up in the chat. Once again, just go up to where it says Residence Games Booth 2 with the hashtag beside it, and you can type in some questions there, and we'll hit those in just a minute.
We'll also open up, once the Q&A opens up, we can get people chiming in voice chat if they want to
Oh,
as
okay,
well.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I like
Um,
that.
can everybody see this? Is it sharing properly?
Take a look here. Just give it a moment. I think it's got to load in here. Yeah, I can see.
Okay, so I'm in Unity here, and as you can see, I'll just zoom out. We've got in some environment stuff just kind of blocked out, which is really cool to see. And then, yeah, like I said, 3D environment. And as I come in here, oh, hopefully it doesn't lag. You can see our pixel art character, which we haven't shown yet. I mean, if anybody's been following us, you've seen
Yeah.
this, but this is kind of our pixel art representation of our hero. And
This is more the look that you're going for.
exactly. And you won't be able to hear anything, but I'll show you a bit of kind of some of the tech that we're looking at. Geez Louise, if it'll load. I probably should have
It's
hit
okay.
play and first, because Unity always does this on the first play. So
Classic
basically,
Unity.
exactly, classic Unity. As you're running through the map, we wanted to actually, let me backtrack a bit. When you play, so the game kind of takes from some Metroidvania inspired genre, wherein the player will be able to explore areas and backtrack and find
Oh,
other places. And one of the things that in those games that they typically do is all the platforming kind of happens on the same axis, which creates some weird level design things where, like, if you played a Castlevania game, like they play it off because you're in Dracula's castle and it's this weird expanding castle, but the maps are often very strange and like unrealistic. Games like Hollow Knight did a really good job because they go underground and it makes sense in that context. But we wanted, as a 3D environment, we wanted to kind of allow for some depth. And so what I'll show you here, if you guys can see, so we got our character with our run animation, our jump, basic stuff, crouch. And one of the things that we wanted to do is, this is, again, I'll say it's very early POC stuff, but something where you might jump and land in the distance in the background plane. And so you're running around on here, and then when you jump off, you kind of come back forward. And looks a little
that's
janky
cool.
in
So
that
you
scenario, but
basically,
yeah.
yeah, it looks really cool. So you kind of shrink it down a little bit to make it look like you're farther back.
Yeah, so
But you can basically, yeah, I can visually see that you're going back there, like you're farther back on the screen.
yeah, and then when you jump down, it would come down here. And then we can do cool kind of images or imagery where you come down the stairs and the hero kind of goes around the staircase, right?
Oh yeah, that looks good.
So it's just stuff like this that we're experimenting with in the environment with a 3D environment, which I think will lead for some fun, like, explorative moments where maybe jump on this roof and you find some treasure on the rooftops and you come back down and you're back down on street level. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all we
Yeah.
have right now at this moment. We're just kind of pushing our game and our alpha prototype toward basically getting the content we have in the alpha prototype skinned in this our own artwork and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of people are impressed, especially this Lindy character here. So yeah, I'd love to open up the floor to some Q&A here.
Wait, before you do
Go ahead.
that, I got one last little presentation to show.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
let's see it.
remember. So
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah. That's okay. So we
The best
got
part.
a 1 year kind of Resonance Games recap. I won't say anymore. 1 year of Resonance Games.
Woo!
So yeah, it's been a wild year, and I look forward to the year coming up. But we don't have much time left on the clock, so let's just throw it out to the people. Does anybody have any questions?
Plants, this is your time.
Maybe there's some in chat here. Oh, we got one person
Yeah.
typing, a couple people typing.
my-
Feel free to unmute your mic and talk too. It's all good. We're here for you. We're here for the community. It's all about the community.
Why a frog named Ooze?
Oh,
What a great question
Derek,
from
you
Derek.
son of a gun. Asking the insider info. That's classified. I can't.
Oh,
No, actually, if that last video we watched, you can see one of the earliest prototypes I had was a little hero fighting a little ooze creature. And so in Unity, it was
right.
named Ooze. And so
Mhm.
it just never changed. When I replaced the art from the ooze to the frog, the art changed, but the name in Unity stayed as Ooze. And so at that point, I was like, it makes sense for a frog too, so I just name him Ooze. Great question.
Yeah, I think
Vicious
that's great.
secretions, says Drew. Yes. Where do you come up with all your other names, Zephyr, etc.? I mean, I feel like anybody who doesn't say what I'm about to say as a narrative person is a liar. But maybe not in on the cabal. But as a I play Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm as a dungeon master, I have to come up with all these fantastical names and stuff. And sometimes you get them from other fantasy sources, or you mishmash words. But a lot of the time, you just make shit up and wait until something sounds good. And I think for Zephyra in
Hmm.
particular, I honestly can't remember what it wasn't. I think I just was like I was just, you playing around with words, Zephra, yeah, and it just comes out.
We named our sky Desmende, so I can kind of see,
Yeah,
some
Zesmende.
connection
I
there.
like, maybe I like Z words. But yeah, sometimes you come up with words that have meaning, but a lot of the times fantasy words are kind of meaningless, but they gain an identity as you use them. So Zephra has become a word that stuck for sure. Is there any romance subplot with ooze?
Ooh,
Asks Comrade Jake.
yeah, 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 yeah.
There is. You're a married hero. You have a child. What kind of message would I be promoting if you could?
Minor speed bump.
I guess, yeah. I guess if you're in a polyamorous relationship with ooze, that could be maybe DLC. You know what? If there's enough outcry for it, maybe we do
Mhm.
some DLC. But as far as the lore goes and the story goes, no. Unfortunately, there's no romantic involvement with ooze. I don't think ooze would be
But there could
interested.
be a bromance.
I think there could be
There could
definitely
be
a
a
bromance.
bromance.
There could definitely be a bromance for sure. Yes.
It starts off as enemies, and then you turn into
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
the
Lindy
teammate.
asks, okay, another question. Did you read a lot as a kid? Where do you come up with your narratives? They're pretty detailed. I didn't. I read a decent amount as a kid, and I've always had a love for fantasy and sci-fi, and so, and writing has always been one of my strengths, I guess, growing up and going to school. And as a designer, my main focuses were always level design, gameplay design, and narrative design. And so, and I play Dungeons and Dragons. I've always had a creative kind of mindset, and so yeah, that's definitely helped me in crafting memorable location. I don't know,
Worlds.
Chris. Would you say our D&D narrative has been engaging?
No, not at all.
Dang, shut down. All right,
No, definitely. No, Kieran, you do an incredible job building the world, and it takes a lot of time, honestly.
it
And
does.
you put that time aside, and you do that, and you're building a game in your free time, and quite a few different things. So you definitely have quite a bit on your plate, but you make it work and still have time to play video games and relax and do
Yes, I
do what
mean
everybody wants to do.
that's actually, Chris, you made it make a good tangential point, which is playing a lot of games has given me a lot of creative ideas and inspirations as well. Yeah, so I hope that answers that question. How will rhythm elements make their way into platforming? Will there be
Ooh,
any?
I like that.
So the explorative kind of platforming aspects are definitely less or rhythm musically inspired. However, like in Metroid, I'll just say this, I won't spoil anything, but like in a Metroidvania style games where you unlock an ability to let you traverse different parts of the map, there are going to be some maybe musically inspired upgrades that you can get to also explore the world. So, yeah, we do plan on having some. And it looks like,
I have a question maybe for
oh,
you,
okay.
Kieran. While the people are typing, is obviously, like, you're kind of right now you're just kind of taking whatever help people want to provide. Are there certain avenues of support that would be more helpful for you right now? Like if somebody reached out who was good at making XYZ and we're looking to add something to the resume, would there be certain um,
Yeah, like
skills that would be helpful
at
to
the
you right now?
moment, like I said, we're not looking to bring too many people on board because we don't have funding. Maybe if people want to come on and like
Sure.
do some freelance work,
Yeah.
we're always looking at maybe some composers to do some music, maybe.
Hmm.
Potentially even a sound designer down the road is really important. Finding a talented sound designer who's maybe familiar with a program like Fmod. Um, but yeah, I definitely say if you are interested in the project, to just keep your eyes out on our Facebook group, Twitter, all that stuff. And when those positions do open up and we do need people, we'll be posting on those.
Yeah.
And
No,
then
awesome. Yeah,
last,
because I mean, I think you have some talented people here.
yeah, definitely. Sorry, Derek asks, we'll just do one last question. How do RPG elements make their way into the game? I'm thinking stats and other numbers, maybe just skills. So as you could see, you had an HP bar, you had a rhythm gauge, uh, and you had
Gage.
attacks, defense, you're doing a certain amount of damage per hit. Um, those all are kind of the RPG, the main core RPG elements. But then we definitely want to add an inventory equipment system where you can actually get different pieces of equipment, maybe like a different sword that will give you a different skill. And you'll be able to customize your little skill menu. So it's kind of hard without a visual example, but you can basically set up a four-way directional skill thing, and you can put different skills in those and improve those, improve your damage, and that sort of thing. Yeah, we have ideas and plans for a few light RPG systems. Again, nothing too crazy big since it is the scope isn't there. But yeah, it looks like we only have a couple minutes
We got
left
a few
here.
minutes left. I want to quickly do a quick plug. So people, everybody who is, if you want to learn more or just kind of keep up to date with how the game's developing as things goes on, definitely check out some of our socials. I'll throw a link to our Facebook page there. Give that a quick follow so you can see, what's going on over there. Where else, Kieran, should people go? You've got the itch.io.
Yeah, we have our itch.io page, which has some dev blogs posted every now and then. I'm on Twitter, so I'll post my Twitter there if people want to follow. We have our Facebook group. Again, because we're on a slower burn development, don't expect to have updates like super frequently, but I do want to get to the point where we can maybe do an update every couple weeks. And
Yeah.
obviously, Chris, you'll be helping a bit with that. But
Hmm.
and before we let everyone go, we have a special little surprise for everyone. We got some made.
Hmm.
And so again, these are kind of all just for fun. And
Yeah.
lastly, I know we only have a couple minutes left. We got they'll show off some fun. So if you want to use these,
To steal these.
yeah.
Hmm. I think the people really want some frog ones.
Oh, I can give them some
So,
frog ones. So there's a few more that I'm not showing, so I don't want. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I should swear. I don't
ooh,
want to spam. Oh, I just got demonetized. I don't want to post them all. I'll just say it. I don't want to post them all in here. We're
awesome.
gonna hopefully use those and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna be part of the server.
Thank everybody for coming in and enjoying our presentation and going over everything. Once again, feel free to reach out if you guys have want to check in. You can go to our Facebook page. We had some people just submit some fan art to our email there. So definitely, yeah, stay in touch and thanks again for
Yeah, thank you for everybody
spending an hour
watching
with
them.
us.
Yeah, we're going to hop in. I hope Chris will too, but I'm going to hop into the Gatherer portal for maybe about an hour or so. So anybody who wants to jump in there to ask more questions and talk, we'll be doing
Hang
that.
out.
Yeah, so
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Let me know if you have any trouble with Gather. I can get you set up with that.
perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you
I
all.
think we got some
And yeah,
invitations.
we'll see you on the other side there.
Peace.
Peace.
What's the tagline for your game, Kieran?
Oh, can you hear the music?
Can you hear the
It's a
music?
trick question because there is no music playing. But maybe there is if you're listening to your soul song. So, all right, guys, I'll see you all in Gather. It's
Boom.
been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey.